We begin Chapter 8, Taraka Brahma Yoga, the Yoga of the Supreme. Vanchitam amritam yatu Shri Rupa Raghunathayo tadane truti lesham yaha sahate no Narasingha ka. Pachadakari Siddhanta Sarasvati Samasama Bhaktivedanta Sishyasa Bande Swami Narasingha ka. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namane. Bhaja Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Verses 1 and 2. Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adi Bhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adi Daivam Kim Uchate Adi Yajna Katam Kotra Dehi Smin Madhusudana Prayana Kali Chakatam Neosi Niyatatmabihi. Arjuna inquired, O Purushottama, Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What is karma? What is action? What is this material manifestation? Who are the demigods? Who is the object of sacrifice? And how does he dwell within the body? O Madhusudan, how can you be known by those who are self-controlled at the time of death? Anuvritti commentary by His Divine Grace Jagad Swami Bhakti Gaurava Narasingha Maharaja. For the serious student of yoga, and for that matter anyone desiring the perfection of life, Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, his dearest friend and well-wisher, a series of very important questions. Vedanta Sutra, one of the most scholarly literatures ever written on the thesis of transcendence, begins with the statement, Om Ahato Brahma Jignasha. Now, in this human form of life, one should inquire into Brahman. The human form of life is actually meant for inquiring into such matters as Arjuna has put forward, and the Supreme Master of Yoga, Sri Krishna, will now answer them most concisely. The purpose of the human form of life is also explained in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows. Karmasya nindriya pritir labha jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jignasa nartoyascheha karmabhi. Life's desires should never be aimed toward gratifying the senses. One should desire a healthy life only because human life is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's activities. That was the Srimad Bhagavatam. Verse 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavodhyatmamam Uchate Bhutabhavo Bhavakaro Visharga Karma Samjitaha. Bhagavan Sri Krishna replied, It is said that Brahman is the imperishable supreme, and the Atma is the original spiritual nature of the living being. Karma is that which produces birth, duration of life, and death. Verse 4. Adi Bhutam Sharo Bhava Purushaschandi Daivatam Adi Yagno Hamyevatra Dehi Deha Britambara. This material manifestation is defined as constantly changing, and this material universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Person. I am the object of all sacrifices situated in all living beings. Verse 5. Antakali chamameva smaran mukva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasyatra samsayaha. At the time of death, one who leaves the body specifically remembering me attains my nature. Of this there's no doubt. Verse 6. Yam yam vapi smaram bhavam jyat yat yante kalevaram tam tamevati kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. O son of Kunti, whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, one certainly attains to that nature. Verse 7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanushmara yujacha mayarpita manobudir mamevasya samsayaha. Therefore, always remember me and fight. Surrender your mind and intelligence to me, and you will surely attain me. Anuvritti commentary by Srila Guru Maharaj. Sri Krishna's answers to Arjuna are to the point, and if one accepts Krishna as the ultimate authority in yoga, as indeed he is, then one quickly attains the most valuable knowledge. To acquire perfect knowledge by speculation or by the process of trial and error simply wastes valuable time. In fact, so much time is wasted in speculation and experimentation that even after centuries, such processes have failed to deliver perfect knowledge of the meaning of life. Everyone is dying, and for the most part, dying without answers to life's most basic questions. However, since time immemorial, Sri Krishna has had the answers, and they are presented here in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says that all living beings are Brahman, part and parcel of the spiritual energy of the Absolute Truth, eternal, individual, imperishable, and immutable. However, in this material world, death of the body comes to everyone. There are no exceptions. But for those whose mind and intelligence are fixed on Krishna, they do not take birth again in the material world, but attain Krishna's own divine nature. Krishna is by nature Satchidananda, eternal, complete in knowledge, and full of bliss. Remembering Krishna at the time of death, one attains that nature and is immediately transferred to the abode of Krishna, far beyond the material sky and the planets of birth and death. As Krishna will explain in chapter 15, one who attains his supreme abode does not return to this material world. When we speak of samsara, we are indeed talking about reincarnation. Although reincarnation is becoming a popular belief in many communities, it is for the most part misunderstood. To many, reincarnation means being born as a human being life after life, but this is not a fact. The human form of life is only rarely achieved. It is not something that comes in rapid succession. Above and below the human species, there are hundreds and thousands of other life forms. According to one's activities performed in this life and one's final consciousness and state of mind at the time of death, one's next birth is determined. In the species below the human being, namely animal, aquatic, insect, and plant life, there is great ignorance and suffering. Above the human plane, there are higher planets full of celestial beings and celestial pleasures. Yet higher or lower, all stations of life in the material world are temporary. There is no place of eternal damnation and no place of eternal happiness in the material universe. Nothing in this world is everlasting. Only the abode of Krishna is beyond the dualities of pleasure and suffering. Krishna says above in verse 5, Anta kalicha mam eva smaram muktva kali varam. One who remembers him at the time of death attains his transcendental nature. To remember Krishna at the end of life is indeed perfection, and to forget him is the greatest aberration. The Vishnu Dhammo Torara Purana states, Sahanistan machidram sa moha sacha vibramaha yan mahurtam sanam vapi vasudevam nachintayet. If even for a moment remembrance of Krishna is missed, that is the greatest loss, the greatest delusion, and the greatest anomaly. That was the Vishnu Dhammo Tara Purana. However, it is our experience of the world that death is often accompanied by great pain, confusion, and bewilderment of memory. Therefore, it would seem that to remember Krishna at the time of death is no easy task. Death may come swiftly at any time, without a moment's notice, or even during sleep, thus impeding one's remembrance of Krishna. In this regard, Kulakshekhara Alvar writes in Mukundamala Stotram as follows, Krishna tvadiya pada pankaja pancharantam adyaiva vishatu me manasa rajahamsaha prana prayana samye kapavata vitai kanta varudana vidal smarana kutaste. O Krishna, please help me die quickly, so the swan of my mind may become encircled by the stem of your lotus feet. Otherwise, at the time of my final breath, when my throat is choked up, how will it be possible for me to think of you? That was Mukunda Mala Stotram 33. For the Bhakti yogi, Krishna takes all his many endeavors, practices, and services into consideration. Even if the Bhakti yogi is unable to remember Krishna at the time of death, Krishna will certainly remember him. Sri Krishna is never forgetful under any circumstance, and thus he swiftly delivers his devotee from the clutches of death. Krishna himself confirms this in the Varaha Purana as follows. Yadi vitadi doshena mad bhakta mam chana smaret aham smarami mad bhakta nayami paramam gatim. If my devotee is unable to remember me at the time of death because of the great disturbances felt within the body, at that time I shall remember my devotee and take him to the spiritual world. Verse 8. Abhyasha yoga yuktena chetasha nanyagamina paramam purusham divyam yati partha nuchintayan. O Partha, one who practices yoga and focuses his mind without straying from the path and meditates upon the Divine Supreme Person certainly achieves him. Verse 9. Kavin Puranamanushasitaram Anuraniyam Sam Anusmaredyat Sarvashadataram Achincharupam Adityavarnam Tamasa Parastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person, who is all-knowing, without beginning, the Supreme Controller, who is smaller than the atomic particle, yet who is the support of all things in the universe, whose form is inconceivable, who is radiant like the sun, and who is beyond material nature. Verse 10. Prayana kalimana sachalena bhakcha yukta yoga balena chaiva Bruvor maje pranama vesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. At the time of death, one who remembers him with a steady mind by drawing the life airs between the eyebrows by dint of yogic power certainly reaches the Divine Supreme Person. Anuvritti commentary by Srila Guru Maharaj. Yoga and meditation are described herein. However, they are not impersonal or self-centered processes. Meditation is to be performed on the absolute truth Sri Krishna, not on abstract ideas that we ourselves are the sum total of reality, that we are all-knowing, or that we are the supreme controller, etc. Such processes are not meditation, but self-deception, and never lead to liberation or eternal bliss. In verse 10, Sri Krishna says that in yogic meditations, Astanga and Kundalini Yoga, one should draw one's life airs to the area of the eyebrows. This indicates the location of the Ajna Chakra. There are 7 chakras located in the body that are the primary seats of human consciousness. Consciousness pervades the entire body, but is said to be centered in one of the 7 chakras. Muladhara Chakra, located at the base of the genital. Svadhisthana Chakra, located at the base of the spinal cord. Manipura Chakra, located in the navel area. Anahata Chakra, located in the heart. Vishuddha Chakra, located in the throat. Ajna Chakra, located in between the eyebrows. And the Sahasrara Chakra, located at the top of the head. When consciousness is situated in the lower 3 chakras, one is found to be preoccupied with the animal tendencies of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. When consciousness is situated in the upper chakras, there is a progress in the finer sentiments of spiritual culture and ultimately liberation. Consciousness is raised in meditation from one chakra to another through the subtle passage in the body known as the Sushumna Nadi. Krishna says that the yogi should bring his consciousness to be seated in the Ajna Chakra, sometimes known as the third eye. Here the yogi makes his or her final preparation and at last raises the consciousness through the Sushumna Nadi to the Sahasrara Chakra, and from there the yogi quits the material body. If the Astanga yogi or Kundalini yogi makes Sri Krishna the object of his meditation, while concentrating on the Ajna chakra. Then after passing the Sahasrara chakra, the yogi achieves Krishna's supreme abode. However, if the said yogi does not make Sri Krishna the object of his meditation, then he may enter the Brahmajyoti for some time, but eventually he returns to this material world. The aforementioned processes of yoga take superhuman endeavor and for the most part are not possible for the average person to achieve in this age. Astanga yoga and Kundalini yoga must be practiced in absolute seclusion from society, observing complete celibacy and fasting for long periods. In ancient times, such yogis went to the mountain caves of the Himalayas or to the deserts. Today's yogis in modern yoga studios and societies are unable to raise their consciousness through the chakras to the Sahasrara chakra because they lack the solitude and severe determination required. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita conclusively recommends the process of Bhakti Yoga that can be practiced by everyone everywhere by fixing the mind on Sri Krishna and thus attaining perfection. One may question that since Sri Krishna is speaking here in the third person, that he is not referring to himself as the object of meditation, and therefore it does not mean that we should meditate on Krishna. However, according to Swami B.R. Sridhar Maharaj, a great acharya of Bhakti Yoga, when Krishna speaks in the third person, he is referring to the object of meditation as his expansion as Paramatma, superconsciousness. As already explained in the second chapter, Sri Krishna manifests himself as the Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings. Therefore, meditation on the Paramatma means meditation on Krishna. Those who cannot comprehend the absolute truth as personal due to anarthas, misgivings of the heart, can meditate on Krishna's impersonal aspect as Brahman. But this process is tedious, and the results are limited, since even the Brahman-realized yogi must once again return to the world of birth and death.